In a dark, dark night, there was a dark, dark house. And in that dark, dark house was a dark, dark room. And in that dark, dark room was a dark, dark closet. And in that dark, dark closet was.
Damn that screaming spider.
Yeah. It's Halloween, subs.
It's Halloween.
Time to hear the scariest story of them all from Kate.
It's scary.
Yeah, it's creepy and stuff, so we'll let Spidey hang out.
It's scary. Is that facing me?
Oh, no, it's not. I forgot to turn the thing around.
Subs
I forgot.
is being sabotaged.
Yeah, I got.
It's looking at the
There we go. What?
It was looking at the microwave.
No, it's actually facing us, but the
Oh,
little
the screen.
screen.
Oh, okay.
I didn't set the screen. Yeah, everything's fine, but
He done it, Subs.
yeah, we'll just. Oops, it's Halloween. You know. Here, enjoy the spider.
Yeah. Along with my It shirt, Subs.
Yeah, it's scary.
I got my It shirt. It's Pennywise.
I got my Fates Warning shirt.
Yeah.
Because it's scary.
That shirt is appropriate for what we're going to talk about, Subs. It's very appropriate.
Very appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's these two stories that are intermingled, Subs.
Oh my.
Yeah. About people who just who won't do right, Subs. And the terrible consequences that they paid because they just aren't going to do right. Okay. The first one is called The Phone Call. The second one is called Under the Bed. Under the bed is what happened as a consequence of the phone call. Okay. Now, Subs, like I said, I've done nursing. I did it for 25 years. You know, I was in nursing homes. I was in hospitals. I was in private homes. You know, and you see a lot of things. You know, and like I said, when you work there, you're not allowed to talk about that stuff. Because they figure if word gets out, nobody's going to bring their family. So, which I can see that from a business perspective. But you need to tell the staff what's going on. You know, so they just don't walk blind into a situation. But they don't even want to do that. Which I don't think is fair. Usually they have to find out from us. And some people you can tell things and they'll keep it to themselves. They'll just come to us about it. Then there's people that you can't really talk to them because they'll go over your head to the people who are telling you not to talk about it. And then everybody's in trouble. So, you know, you have to sort of gauge people because you're always going to run into people like that. Well, anyway, this started out in the home. Then it went to the hospital. Then it went back to the home for the consequences of what ultimately happened. Well, anyway, and the story I told last week about Stupid Leon, okay, what ended up really happening to him was everything came out about, everybody saw, the higher ups saw the security footage of him trying to get into the medical room, medicine room, while the girl was down there, you know, paying her respects to, well, I think it was Sandy, that was down there paying her respects to Daryl when he was going to, you know, hit her and everything until Daryl came and put a stop to that. So after they saw the security footage and everything, of course they denied everything, you know, but they didn't deny that he tried to break into the medical supply room. So he had his license taken away, and unfortunately for the woman that he tricked, Lorraine, because she was up there, she was not authorized to be up there because she was a CNA. They don't go into the medical room. 2 nurses have to go in there. She was not, so she did not get her license back, and his license was stripped from him. So it was just a farce all the way around. Well, anyway, so here we go into the story of the phone call. Now, like I said, I did this for 25 years, and when I first started out in home care. And I did home care off and on through my 25 years, because some of the people I went home with them. after they went home. Sometimes they were with the agency that I was with. A lot of them weren't, but a couple of them were. And when I found out about it, I would request them, and when they found out, that I worked, they was like, yeah, we want to have her. And you are able to do that. You can request certain people, and they don't care. They just want the money, so they don't care. So there was a couple, and they were obese, so they were going to the hospital for sugar and high blood pressure and heart problems, things like that. But they were a very pleasant couple, very pleasant. They were just overweight. So they had a son who was no good. He was just no good. They had like 4 kids. The other 4, had careers. They went off with their life. Never gave their parents any trouble. So there's always one. There's always one. And
The black sheep of the family.
yeah, he's the black sheep of the family. And all he was a user. And I guess his mom felt sorry for him. His dad didn't. Which he's a man. If they weren't there, what would he do? Because the other ones, they didn't want to be bothered with. Period. Because he was the type of person that would tell lies to start trouble, to break up their relationships, and they weren't having that. So they didn't want him around. Apparently, he was a problem when he was a child. So they just when they were old enough to leave, they cut him loose. So that's a sad state of affairs, but what are you going to do? Well, anyway, so when they would come to the hospital, usually one came and then the other one would come, because they really weren't taking as good care of their health as they should have. So they would be put in the same room. And in those days, so they didn't have what they have now. They didn't have like the beds that are bigger or reinforced. They didn't have that back then. They just had the regular beds. So what they had to do is they used to have, and they still have them. They're like lounge chairs. So they would with handrails. So they would put them on there. Just put a blanket on it and just wheel it into their room. And that's what they had, because we just didn't have beds big enough. But they were very pleasant. Very nice. So one day, I was with them for a couple of years. And one day the husband had to go into the hospital for his sugar. And they had to take off one of his legs. And he was a big strapping man, and he was used to working all the time. And when this happened, he started to go downhill because he couldn't work like he was used to. And to him, he couldn't take care of his family on the level he was used to doing, because he worked very hard. He worked 2 jobs. That man was hard working. Then when it got to the point where he couldn't work anymore, he didn't know what to do with himself. That's just like people who retire. They don't know what to do with themselves. So, but his was a little bit more permanent, because he couldn't go get like a little piece of job, as we call it up north. That's when you get a job, to just have extra money. We call that a little piece of job. But he really couldn't even do that. And he started getting depressed and everything. So his name was Mr. Harvey. And his wife, Miss Lil, nice, like I said, nicest people you ever want to meet. Me and her, we would try to cheer him up, because he liked puzzles and stuff. So I would sit with him, during respite, which is when you go sit with a patient so their family can have some time to themselves to pay bills and do the grocery shopping and, other things that need to be done. So I found out that he liked puzzles and stuff. So I went to the dollar store, and get him a couple, puzzles with the 500 or 1,000 pieces, really keep him occupied. And he liked the hard ones. So I would look for ones like with a bunch of flowers that you really couldn't tell. I don't know how the hell he was going to do it. But that's the type he liked, because it really, kept his mind sharp. That's what he was afraid of, that he would not really have enough to read, or he couldn't keep his mind occupied. So with stuff like that, he could. And he was real happy. He'd sit there at his little poker table, and have his little puzzle out, and I'd help him. Sometimes he was happy with that, because he had something to do. Okay, in come the garbage. Here come his son. Okay, so I'm sitting there with Mr. Harvey, and we're, doing a puzzle, this, that, and the other. Oh, what you want? What are you doing that for? He said, because I want to, and it keeps me occupied. Oh well, I mean, don't you want to go outside? He said, no, I'm doing what I want to do. If you don't mind. I mean, he knew he was a user, and he wanted him to know you're not going to use me. His mother was a little softer, but Mr. Harvey wasn't. So the son really didn't want to be there when the mother wasn't there, because he knew his father was on to him. He knew I was on to him too. Everybody who came to the house, they knew what was going on. So whenever they would see the son, they'd be, oh Lord, you know. And the son's name was Mitchell. He was a real pain in the ass.
My, Mitchell.
Yeah, Mitchell. So, time went on, and so Mr. Harvey had to go, and he was in and out of the hospital a lot because of his heart and his sugar. So, a couple of years of this, and Mr. Harvey, he started to get, sicker and sicker and sicker, and he had to go to a home. So I went with them, because you could bring your own workers if cause you're insured, and they had good insurance because that man worked hard. Both him and his wife, they worked very hard. So in those days, Blue Cross Blue Shield was the insurance to have because that covered everything, and that's what they had, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Plus, he was a vet, so they were pretty much, they didn't have anything to worry about. Now, the time that Mr. Harvey was in the nursing home, of course, his wife was going to be right there with him. She spent the night there. I mean, they were totally devoted to each other because they had met like when they were, I think they were like in kindergarten or something, and they grew up together, and he went to the service and came back. She waited for him and everything, and they ended up getting married, so they each other are all they had. I mean, they had family, they had kids and everything, but it was mostly just them two. And while they were away at the hospital, the son decided that he was going to start looking for stuff, like insurance policies and checkbooks and stuff like that. But Mr. Harvey was not a fool. And he had told his wife, to put all that important stuff either in the bank or to take it to the hospital because he would have them lock it up, wallets and stuff like that. He didn't want anything important in the house because he knew what was going on when they weren't there. And his wife, for some strange reason, didn't want her son out in the street. He's a grown man. Whatever a grown person can do for themselves, there's only so much you can do for them. Even animals, if their kids get a certain age and they act like they don't want to leave, they'll turn on them. I mean, I know you've seen that hundreds of times. Dogs, cats, whatever. Yeah, they'll beat their ass to the point where they run. They're like, you've been here long enough, get to stepping. So, like I said, he only came around when he wanted something. Now, where he was in between there, God only knows. So anyway, okay, I went with him, to the nursing home because I didn't work at this particular nursing home. I worked at at the hospital, but I went home with them. So then when he had to go to the nursing home, I just went with him. It wasn't any big deal or anything because that was just less work the staff had to do. So they were grateful, like, oh, good, they have their own people coming in because everybody knows how overworked the staff is. So, Mr. Harvey over time, he just gave up, because he loved his wife and he wanted to be with her because he knew it was going to happen when he died, but he couldn't live the way he was used to living. He couldn't provide anymore, and that just really weighed on him. So eventually, over time, he went to sleep and just never woke back up. That was it. He died peacefully. She was right there because they set her up on a little cot right next to the bed. She was right there the whole time, and they were talking, and because usually when they talked, I left. When they were having their little conversations and everything, they wanted some private time. So I'd go out there with the staff. We'd be out there, BSing or whatever, because I was there so regular. Sometimes when they wanted to be alone, I would go help, the staff or whatever, because I didn't mind doing that. Kept me busy. have some private time to themselves. So when they were talking, I got up, and left because he said he was getting really tired. He's starting to feel really tired. So he was like, well, go on and lay down. We'll get some rest and, we'll talk in the morning. And that's when I got up and left. I went out there with the crew because of course, I was on 11 to 7, but that's the shift I mostly took. I wasn't there all day. So I go out there and she comes out about, that's about a half an hour later. And because he was snoring, all of a sudden the snoring stopped. And so, and of course he was hooked up to a monitor and everything. And it went off. But sometimes monitors will do that. They'll just go off. So we'll go in and check, to make sure what's going on. Because sometimes it'll signal that the fluids need to be changed, or something. Because the bags are running out. So we thought that's what it was, and she thought that's what it was, till I came, we went back in there, and I went back in there, and we looked, and we saw that he had flatlined. So I asked her, I said, is he DNR? And she was like, yes. I said, well, then they can't do anything. So they didn't try to revive him because that's not what he wanted, and she didn't make him. Because everybody knew, the doctors knew, the staff knew, she knew, don't try to revive him because that's not what he wanted. He said, just, don't do that. So we couldn't do it. Okay, but we waited. We didn't do anything. We didn't disconnect him. We waited for like a half an hour. But everything had flatlined. That was it. I turned off the alarms. So I shut the door. So she could be with him, and I was there. With her. To give her support and everything. And he passed away. He was asleep. He wasn't in pain. He wasn't suffering or anything. He just was really depressed because he couldn't do what he's used to doing all of his life. Because he had been working since back in the day, you worked when you were like 10, 11 years old. You worked. And that's what he did when he couldn't do it. And he was only, how old was he? 64, 5? I think 64, 5, something like that. He wasn't that old. But, the sugar got a hold of him because he wasn't taking care of it like he was supposed to. That happens a lot. You'd be surprised. Well, anyway, so of course, she's, really upset and everything. And, the hospital, the nursing home called her son. So he comes over and the mother, they had taken, the social worker had come to get the mother, to make arrangements for the funeral parlor to come in and pick him up and everything. So I stayed in the room with him, and I was preparing him and everything. I bathed him and, he had extra clothes and stuff, which I really couldn't do by myself because he was a really big man. So, a couple of the other aides were there helping me and everything. And, we had the door shut and the curtain pulled. So we were cleaning him up and everything and got him presentable for when they came. We didn't bag him because we didn't really have a bag big enough, but the funeral parlor did. So, we just waited for them to come. But we went and did what we were supposed to do in preparation for them. So here come the son just busted in the room, asking all these stupid questions. And we're all, you need to leave. If you want to ask questions, you need to go out to the nurse's station. Where there's nobody out there, we'll wait for them to come. This is not the place. You're not going to be acting a fool up in here. Show some respect. If you didn't show respect when he was alive, you'll show respect now. Oh, yeah, well, we'll see about this. I'm like, yeah, okay, buckwheat.
Yeah.
Whatever. So.
Yeah, stymie.
Yeah. So we go and get everything, prepare. We, take all the dirty stuff outside, throw it in the bin. And, his wife and the social worker, were coming down and, they were telling me everything that was going on. Here come the son. I guess they had told him what happened, that we didn't try to assist him when he died because that's what he said to do. Well, I think what is this about? You didn't help Daddy, and you didn't try to help him and bring him back. She said, well, he said not to. Well, you could have said something. And I'm looking at this fool like, really? everybody's just like, um, this is what he wanted, not what you want. This is what he wanted. He tried to make his mom feel guilty. Who does that, Subs? Who does stuff like that? You be amazed what goes on. Death and money changes people. You'd be surprised
I know firsthand.
how death and money will change people.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's sitting up there trying to berate his mom and everything, and me and Esther like, no, you're not doing that. You're not doing that at all, because we're not going to stand for that. So what can you do about it? You'd be surprised what we could do. Because in Pennsylvania, they prosecute for elder abuse. That's considered to be elder abuse, and we do prosecute. So once he heard about all that, because we knew, he had a record, so of course he didn't want to bring, any kind of police down on him. So he started settling down after he found out, we wasn't going to put up with that. So, we go in, and here, about 20 minutes later, here comes the funeral parlor. So we take her out, some people will stay there, but that's up to them. But she was an old lady, so we're like, no, that might be a little bit too much for her, and she had a bad heart anyway. So we're, they're like, well, take her down, they had like this little room there where you could go. Nobody was in there, the room was empty, didn't have any patients in it. So I took her down there and shut the door, and I was, talking. Of course, she's crying and she's really upset and everything, of course. So I'm down there with her. So after they had taken him, of course, they knocked on the door and let us know, okay, he's been, taken away, and she's like, well, I have to go to the funeral parlor. She asked me, would I come? I'm like, sure. I said, because I'm still working for you. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go with you. So we go to the funeral parlor and everything, and I'm sitting there with her because, she really couldn't see. I mean, they gave her the paperwork, but she couldn't read it because, of course, she's crying and she couldn't read it. So I just filled it out. It wasn't a big deal or anything. We're not supposed to do that, but the poor woman needed help. What was I supposed to do? So I did fill it out, but I didn't sign anything. I just filled out how much it is. I explained it to her. What did she want done? Certain things like that. Okay, there was going to be a funeral, but he wanted to be cremated because he wanted it to be quick and over with. He didn't want to put his wife through anything. We're like, okay, that's a good idea. So, she did everything, he asked her to do. I knew it wasn't easy for her, but she did do it. Okay, so we go home, and I told her, I said, well, I have to report to my agency, let them know what happened and all. And she's like, well, are you going to be coming back? I said, yeah. I said, I'll be checking in. I said, I'll be coming back around because I know what she didn't want to be with her stupid son. But, while I was sitting there with her, she, had called and told her kids what we're going. The kids and her relatives were calling, letting everybody know, yeah, I'll be here at this certain time. I'm on my way, blah, 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 with everybody's flight and all this other stuff. And her husband's brothers, two brothers, didn't live too far. They lived like a couple miles away. So they came over because they knew what the son was like. Everybody knew. So they came over and took her over to their house so that they didn't want her in the same house, being surrounded by all of that. Everybody know the routine. So, they were a good family. They're a nice, close-knit family because they were good people, and they were together for so long. So, later on, there was nothing in the house of value because all the important papers and everything, the brothers, it was over their house, we found out later, that all the arrangements had been made, that there was nothing of importance in the house. It was just material stuff, but no money, no bonds, no CDs, no insurance, nothing, no checkbooks, nothing, no bank statements, none of that. They had already come while he was in the hospital. They had already come and gathered up all that stuff. So there was nothing in the house. Son didn't know that. So, like I said, I would go back and forth, and I'd get off my work, and I'd go over there, and see about her because I'd been with her for a long time. until her kids, started popping. We all knew each other, so we're over there talking, and we noticed that he hadn't got there yet. So everybody knew where he was, but everybody was just looking at each other like, oh Lord. Everybody knew where he was. He was over the house trying to look for shit. There wasn't nothing there. So anyway, so here he comes when he finally did show up, talking about, yeah, the phone keeps ringing. And we're like, well, so? Yeah, but it keeps ringing talking about you won't find nothing.
Wow.
We're like, what? Everybody's looking at you. We're thinking one of the relatives knows what he's doing, so they're calling the house. That was not the case. But at the time, we didn't know. So we're all just looking at. Most people are just ignoring him, because it's just a matter of time before he asks for, brother, can you spare a dime shit? The only thing he didn't have, subs, was the old gloves with the fingers cut out, and the old coat with the patches all over it. Brother, can you spare a dime? Because he's one of them.
Oh, boy.
What he's like, what, wimpy,
Wendy, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a
yeah.
hamburger today.
Yeah, but Tuesday never comes. Tuesday never comes.
Oh my.
So, he just kept bothering people about it. You're like, well, man, so what? Damn. There ain't nothing in the house anyway. That's what they told her. There ain't nothing in that house because Daddy took care of all of that. He knew what you was up to, just like we know what you up to. But I left that up to the family, I left that between them. I had nothing to do with that. So, the day of the funeral, I'm there. All the family's there. Everybody's sad and everything. But it went pretty good. I didn't go to the wake, or anything like that. And a couple days later, after everything had simmered down, Miss Lily called, and asked me, if I could come over. I'm like, oh yeah. So when I got off work, I went on over there. And I just, spent the night with her. I didn't go back home. I just stayed with her. And, because I had clothes over there because I had been staying there. I never did pick up my clothes and everything. I just left it there because I figured what was going to go on. So she was telling me that the phone was ringing. And whenever the son picked it up, he heard the same thing. There's nothing in there. I don't know why you're there. There's nothing in there. The only thing about it is that he said it was his father's voice on the phone telling him there's nothing in there. So I don't know why you're hanging around. And she looked at me and she said that one of the calls, he had put it on speaker. And she said it sounded just like Mr. Harvey. And I just looked at her. I said, well, maybe it is. I said, Miss Lily, I said, Mr. Harvey knew what was going on. He knew what was going to happen. I said, he wasn't a fool. I said, you know what's going on. I said, if you didn't have anything to offer Mitchell, I said, Mitchell wouldn't be here. Mitchell thinks he's going to get something. Now he thinks he has greater access to it now that Mr. Harvey's gone. And she's like, well, I can't just leave him out in the cold. I said, yes, you can. I said, because if you don't, you won't have anything. This story does not end well. No, it don't. Because Mr. Harvey had a hospital bed. Now, it was just a regular hospital bed, but he would still try to get in it, because he needed to have his feet dangling and stuff, and he would always try to sit in the bed, but he couldn't really get comfortable in it because it wasn't big enough. But he could still like sit up, dangle his feet, keep the circulation going, as well as it could. And this bed plays a tragic part of what happened later on with the son. Well, anyway, so this went on and on and on. So I told her, I said, well, did you ever think to answer the phone? And she said, no. And I knew why. Because we're not supposed to talk to the dead. We're not supposed to do that. Now, if they visit you a dream or something, that's different. But we're really not supposed to talk to them. There's certain rules, and that's one of them. Anyway, so she didn't, she just didn't want to deal with it. She wasn't ready to deal with it, And I told her, I said, well, you have to do what you think is right. I said, if your gut is telling you not to do it, don't do it. I said, I wouldn't do it, Because there was one time, Subs, when one of my patients that I really liked, his name was Mr. Ted. And I was with Mr. Ted for about 3 years. He was a very nice man, too. And he passed away sitting in his chair watching TV because he loved the History Channel, when it was the History Channel. Now they got the American Heroes Channel. We call that the Hitler Channel because it's all World War II. And he loved it. And at Christmas time, he was all by himself. So at Christmas time, I would get him like World War II DVD sets. The World at War and stuff like that. He loved that stuff. So I would get him stuff like that. Because he didn't have nothing else. He didn't really have visitors. He really couldn't go out that much because he had emphysema really bad. He was on oxygen, so he really couldn't get around. When I first started to see him, he could. But as time went on, his lungs got worse, where he just couldn't do it anymore. So the only thing he had was his TV. And I felt sorry for him. I never told him that, but I felt sorry for him, So during a couple Christmases, I brought him some of those World War in the Pacific, and stuff. He loved all of that stuff. So he died in front of his TV, and because the manager downstairs had asked me if I had seen Ted, and I was like, yeah, I saw him on Monday. I said he was waiting for a friend of his to bring him his groceries. And she's like, oh, because the groceries are sitting outside the door, and the door is locked. And I'm like, oh. I said, well, I wonder why he would lock the door. I said, unless they didn't come when he thought they were going to come, and he just probably wasn't feeling good. Went to bed and probably got up the next morning and forgot about it. I mean, I'll never know. So her and Jim, Miss Gloria was the manager, her and the maintenance man, Jim, went upstairs and knocked on the door and all, didn't get an answer, picked up the groceries and went in his apartment, and he's sitting there watching TV, but he was dead. They didn't know if he had died earlier that morning or that night. They really didn't know. I didn't go up there because I didn't want to see him like that, and I know that's not what he would want. So I didn't go up there. So after he was buried and everything, he went to Allegheny Cemetery. After he's buried and all, I was feeling bad, depressed and everything. And I said to myself, I'm going to call his number one more time before it gets changed and somebody picks it up. And I picked up the phone, and I called his number, and it just rang and rang and rang. And then I, hung up, and I felt bad, and I was crying and everything. I felt really bad, and then I put the phone down and went and washed my face, and I heard my phone ringing. And I went in and looked at caller ID. I looked at the caller ID, it said Allegheny Cemetery. I didn't pick it up. Something inside me said, don't pick that up. And I didn't. So I know how she felt. No, I didn't pick that phone up. So that was just, one of my little personal things that happened. But getting back to this, she wasn't ready for it, and like I say, she is a little religious lady, and everybody knows you don't talk to the dead. They'll come to you if something's important that they need to warn you or something. They'll come to you. You don't go to them. It doesn't work that way because there's always terrible, tragic consequences when you do that. Well, anyway, so this kept happening over and over and over. So after a while, the calls just stopped. His brothers and everything was helping Miss Lily, so everything went smooth. The kids were like, Mom, you should leave the house. We'll help you sell the house and come live with us. I mean, because she had kids, and she was such a pleasant person. They were like fighting over her. Because she was so nice, and all the kids wanted Grandma to come live with them. All the grandkids. Because they were little at the time. They all were excited about having grandma live with them. So it was decided that she would live with each, try to at least try to move between the kids, you know. So all the grandkids would get to be with her, and she would never be alone, which was wonderful. Because subs, I'm telling you that now, 99.999% of the time, that don't happen. No, that's a no-no. That does not happen. But you know, she was very lucky that she raised her kids right, except that one. So anyway, you know, as time went on, you know, it got figured out that yeah, we're gonna, you know, sell the house and everything, and Ma, don't worry about it. You know, just come. We're gonna come and get you and take you back to one of the kids' house, and then we'll come back and figure everything out. You know, we'll get a hold of the lawyers, and you know, we'll get you a lawyer, and they worked it out, whatever, you know, to sell the house, because they weren't going to have a claim to the house, but they had to deal with that one brother, because I went through that with my mom's house. You know, they want to get rid of any potential claimants, or else you can't inherit. So they sent all my brothers and sisters except one, because we weren't stupid. We have a leech too, and my three other siblings, they all got a letter from the attorney, and they had to relinquish any interest in the house, which they all did, because they all have their own house. They all built their own houses, so they didn't need a house. And I was already living there because I was the one that went home, you know, to help my mom out. So they were like, well, you're already living there, you know, I don't want that house. So they signed off on it. Once the lawyer got all the paperwork back, you know, then everything could proceed, because nothing can proceed. Everything is put on hold until they get all that paperwork back. And if there's any dispute at all, nothing can get done. So that's what the family wanted to avoid. So they didn't tell them about the other brother, so that everything could go smooth, because their mother, you know, was already missing their father. She was just now starting to come out of her funk, you know, and want to be with the kids and the grandkids, and you know, they wanted to take her places, and you know, the grandkids wanted to show her everything that was going on at school. I mean, it was just a bunch of activities going on that would, you know, not take her mind off her husband, but ease it up a little bit. You know, she has some. She wasn't just. She was leaving one life to go to a happier existence, instead of just being cooped up in the house with her thieving ass son. Because I couldn't be there all the time. Of course not. You know, I had to work. The brothers couldn't be there. They were still working. You know, and they have families. And the other kids, you know, they lived out of state. But everybody came back because everybody knew what was going to happen. Well, anyway, so they, like I said, they all finalized their plans and everything. And I went over, you know, and I helped Miss Lily pack up, and pack up all the stuff that she was going to take. And her son was going to come and get the stuff and get it in her car, and then take her to his house first. I think it was Maryland. I think he lived in Maryland. And he was just going to take her back with him, because she really didn't like to fly, and he didn't care. You know, that was his mom. He knew, you know, she didn't like to fly or anything. He was like, well, I'll start it off since I'm the closest. You know, I'll go get Mom. You know, Karen will help pack up her stuff. You know, I'll put the stuff, because he had a big van, you know, and we said, we'll put the stuff in there, it's no problem, you know, and we could send for everything else. You know, it's not a big deal. Because his other brother and sister, they were going to come and take all their father's stuff and donate it, and, you know, gather up their mom, because there wasn't any, like, important jewelry or anything like that, because that was, you know, in the bank and stuff like that. But the stuff that was left, you know, they were going to donate it, you know, clean up the house and everything, and put the house on the market. Okay. So everything was going smoothly until the brother, I don't think he really knew everything, but he knew enough that they couldn't sell that house without him. So he decided that he was going to make a big fuss about it. And they were like, man, just leave well enough alone. You know, we know what you were up to. We know you were trying to steal from Mom. We know you waited until Dad died, and the only reason you was over there is because you thought that you was going to come there and take over and have a place to stay while you was running the street doing God knows what. And they said, you're not going to use Mom anymore. You know, we're taking Mom with us, and we're going to sell this house. And you better not open up your mouth to say anything, because if you do, we're going to stomp you. You know, be prompt to get stomped. So he went went, and of course, he's trying to do this, that, and the other. But the thing about that, Sibs, is that his name wasn't on anything. Now, he probably could have done something if he had known where to go, but he knew a little, but he didn't know that much. And then I thought, to me, it's like he didn't do but so much because he was scared his brothers were really going to stomp him. So, he's like, Mom's been through enough. She don't need to go through no more. Because you know how mothers are, kids. Mothers want all their kids to get along. That's not always the case because everybody has a different personality.
Yep.
So, big families, everybody don't get along because you always have these people. You have wolves in sheep's clothing, is what you have, and everybody knows who they are. And once they figure out they can't use you anymore, they don't have any use for you. So, and he was like that. He was nothing but a user. So, like I said, he was staying in the house. They were like, well, yeah, you can stay here. You can do whatever you want because we're going to come and clean the house out. And, you have to leave anyway, so it really don't matter. So whatever. He was getting all mad. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. He didn't do anything. Well, he didn't have a chance to do anything. Yeah. His days were numbered. Like I keep telling you, Subs, you only do wrong for so long. And then fate will step in and say, okay, that's enough. You won't stop, so it looks like I'm going to have to stop you. And that's across the board. I don't care who you are. You keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over, okay. You have every opportunity to stop and just go on with your life. You don't want to do that? Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it for you. That's exactly what happened with that bed. So anyway, here we go into the story of under the bed. Like I said, they're intermingled. There was this big, heavy-ass bed. It was steel. Those hospital beds, Subs, weigh a ton. They're heavy. And he was really, really stupid. Okay? And he was up there in the house. So after a while, I think he had been in the house. The Miss Lily had been off to her, to her son's house. I think it had been like 2 weeks, something like that. And they were telling me, because I kept in touch with them. They would call me and tell me, what was going on with the brother and everything. And they were telling me that he was saying that he could hear his father under the bed. Telling him that, he needs to leave because he's done enough damage and he needs to leave. And he said he could hear his father clear as day. It was just like he was under the bed. And it was telling him, because he, of course, they had taken all the furniture. By this time, everything but the bare essentials was out of the house. Because they were going to put it on the market for the hospital bed. And a couple of other things. Because the mother wanted him to have a place to stay. And other than that, he had been in the weeds. Because they wouldn't have cared. Because that's all he was worth. He was just driving, he was just sucking their mother dry. And they didn't want that. So, who would? So, he had the bed. And they left the lights on and everything. But they were only going to leave him on for a month. Now, when the month was up, that's it. Because they had already told the power company, the water, water, gas, everybody, after this is done, shut it off, this is where you send the last bill, that's it. So, they had already made the arrangements. So, anyway, he's telling them that he could hear his dad's voice telling him, you need to leave. You need to leave right now. And, he wouldn't. He wouldn't leave. So, okay. Here the time went on and on and on. After a month, everything was shut off. The people came out, to shut the water off. The gas was shut off. Lights were shut off. Everything. And it was wintertime. By this time, it was winter. He still hadn't left. He didn't believe they were going to do that. For whatever reason. I guess he figured the mom would intervene, but of course they weren't telling her everything. And here it turns out that, let me see, she had been gone 2 weeks, and then the voices under the bed, so he said, kept getting angry courier telling him he needed to leave. And so a couple weeks after that, Miss Lily died. She had a heart attack and died. You know, because she wasn't happy without her husband. I'm not saying she didn't love her kids or her grandkids, but she was with her husband before them. And that's who she wanted to be with. She didn't last long at all without him. So, from what the family told me, the brother thought that they were tricking him, that they had some kind of tape recorder or, you know, some kind of speaker or a Bluetooth up under the bed, and they were pretending to be his father to make him leave the house. Because he said he wasn't going to leave because he didn't have nowhere to go. So I guess Faith said, oh, okay, well, you won't leave. Well, then, all right, I'll make you leave one way or another. So by this time, Miss Lily had passed away. You know, she was buried and everything, and well, cremated because she wanted to be with her husband. So they were in their own little urns, you know, over the son's house, you know. So, you know, that's how that story ended. But as far as the son, okay, he convinced himself, you know, we think he was on something. He probably was. He convinced himself that there was some kind of Bluetooth speaker or there was something under the bed that was trying to drive him crazy because he was hearing his father's voice telling him he needs to leave because you're up to no good. You've never been up to any kind of good. And he said he kept hearing it over and over and over, just like he heard the phone call. You know, and Miss Lily did say she did hear her husband's voice on the phone saying the exact same thing, that he needed to leave because he was nothing but a problem. So he decided he was going to go under the bed. So he's tearing stuff off the bed. Now this is what I heard afterward because the room was in a shambles. So this is all hypothesized what happened when they found him. And the bed wasn't set properly because he was tearing everything up, you know, to try to see where this hidden microphone is. You know, that they're trying to trick him into leaving the house that's, you know, his because he don't have nowhere else to go and his parents don't need it anymore because his father's dead and his mother lived with his brothers and he don't have nowhere to go and yabba dabba doo and all this bullshit.
Wow.
So he was just going to squat there until Faye said, no, you're not. Enough is enough. And like I said, he's tearing the bed apart and everything, screwing up the mattresses, you know, messing with the controls and everything, and he damaged the controls. So what he did was that he thought there was something up under the bed. Now, I don't know. So the beds then, subs, aren't like the beds now. They're different. But they were still just as heavy. But they were old fashioned, and man, I can't tell you how many people got their hands caught in them. I mean, it was just a disaster. So anyway, so this fool sat up there, and like I said, he damaged the mechanism by throwing stuff around. You know, trying to find this microphone. There was no microphone, but he thought there was. He thought somebody left their cell phone. I mean, he was just, you know, tearing the place up. So when they found him, he was up from the way they described it, he was, the top part of the bed was slammed shut. And it was big and heavy. Because I almost got my fingers caught in it one time. Because those beds, you know, they were old, but when there's a lot of weight on them, so they're not as sturdy as they used to be. And he was a big guy. He was obese. He was a big guy. Sweetest man you ever want to meet. But, you know, he didn't take very, very good care of himself. And they didn't have that bed preventative maintenance put on it, which they should have done. Well, maybe in this case it wouldn't have mattered anyway. You know, you'll never know. But as long as he had it, there was never any problem. You know, but the minute he they thought that maybe he would try to sell the bed, but how would he even get the bed out? But whatever. So they said that the nephew was trying to find where he knew there was some kind of, either a phone was somewhere or a speaker was there or some. There wasn't any. And he got up to try to look under the, because he had pulled off the mattress, so there was nothing there but the springs and the heavy outer casing of the bed, which could snap just like a mousetrap, because they, like I said, it was unreliable because of all the weight that had put on it, and it hadn't been maintained properly like it should have been. So when this fool got his head to try to look up underneath it, it slammed shut on his head. Smashed his head. They found him, I believe, let me see. From the time they said that he needs to leave, because the mom, was already gone. They had already cleaned the house out. He only had that bed and a few other little things. From the time they saw him next, I think it was maybe 3 days. So, he was a mess. And of course, thank goodness it was the husband's two brothers, that lived a couple miles up. They found him. They said, you can smell death. Death subs has a thick, funky smell. I mean, there's nothing like it. It hovers in the air like a thick, funky fog. And because when we were young, I guess we were about maybe 11 or 12, something like that. A few blocks down the street from us, an old person had died, and they had been in there, God knows, I don't even remember how long. And when we came out to play that day, it was a nice, bright, sunny day, but there was this disgustingly thick, funky smell. And we were like, well, what is that? And our friends that lived further down came up and told us that, I don't remember if it was an older man or woman. I know they were older people. And it was the street a few blocks down into that crossed our street. And they had died, and the neighbors, had called the police or somebody to do a wellness check. But by the smell, you could tell they were, and this was summertime.
Things weren't well.
No. I mean, the closer you got, and we're stupid kids. We didn't know anything about death or anything like that. So we're thinking movie death. Oh yeah, we're going to go down there and we're going to see them wheel the body out. Yeah, we went down there, and the smell got thicker and thicker and thicker and funkier and funkier and funkier. And they brought the body out. The body was bloated. It was zipped up, and it was bloated. And they had every door and window in that house flung wide open to try to air it out. I mean, that was the first time I had ever smelled death before. Death has the most horrific smell, but it's a smell you never forget. I don't care if it's a dead dog, if it's a dead cat, if it's a dead raccoon, if it's a dead squirrel. You know the smell of death. There's nothing that rivals it. Nothing. But I tell you one thing, nobody went in that house and stole nothing. As a matter of fact, that house isn't even there anymore. Yep, nobody went in that house. But you knew there was something up in there. So, nobody went in there. Because I remember that house, they aired that house out for, it had to be close to a month. They had all the windows, all the doors, everything open to try to air it out. But I don't know, like, if they had kids or anything like that. Because they were old people. And like I said, I don't remember if it was a man or a woman, but they were there by themselves. I do remember the friend telling us that. But, we really didn't hear that, because once our parents found out, they wanted to beat the hell out of us. Like, what do you, so somebody told you somebody died and you want to go and look and smell it? What? I mean, they just couldn't fathom that. Why would we want to do that? We're stupid kids, and we watch horror movies. We were thinking, well, maybe it'll get up like a zombie, or something like that, start chasing people, but it never did. It just, the medical examiner was there, they went and got it. Police were there, ambulance, but it was taken away by the medical examiner. There was nothing the hospital or ambulance could have done. Mitchell, what was left of him. You know, his head got, they found his head was nearly severed because that thing, and they were like, how did it slam shut with that much force that was empty? You know, it was almost like somebody waited patiently for him to stick his head in there and slam that bed down on him. But they said now, you know, the force that it took to almost sever his head and smash it in, you know, that was taking a lot of force. But there was nothing there. I mean, there was no fingerprints but his on it. You know, there wasn't, nobody came in and out the house. You know, the neighbors would have said something. You know, so nobody came in and out the house. You know, so when we were all sitting down, you know, talking about it, I said, well, your dad told him to leave, he wouldn't leave. I said, maybe this was the only way for him to get him out of everybody's life. And everybody's like, yeah, probably. I mean, they didn't feel bad at all. You know, they were like, well, it wouldn't have happened if he'd have left. I said, well, something would have happened. You know, you can't really run from death, Subs, because you'll run into something even worse. So, you know, you try to hear people, they want to know when they're going to die so they can be somewhere else, or they cannot do something. That is not going to prevent you from dying. You'll just die some other way. You can't run from it. There's no such thing. Nobody has ever survived if death really wants you. There's none of this, oh, well, you cheated death. Nobody cheats death. Are you kidding me? Nobody cheats death. Death just gave you a little taste of what's going to happen if you don't knock that shit off. Because usually you'll get a taste. Usually people will die on an operating table. You didn't do anything wrong. You know, that's just something that happened. That's what happened to me. I didn't do anything wrong. You know, thankfully, because I'm back. You know, but
I'm glad you're back.
yeah. But everybody 99.999% of people, they're not coming back. When they're gone, they're gone. And you know, I'm sorry I came back. I mean, I'm not sorry that there was still work for me to do. You know, that needed to be done. It was done. You know, I don't feel sorry for that, but
I'm not sorry. I'm glad
yeah, I'm back.
you're back.
You know, but I'm just sorry that, you know, I couldn't stay. You know, because obviously, you know, like I said, my mom was still here. She needed help. You know, and Richard needed help. You know, and Tommy needed, you know, temporarily needed my help. You know, plus there was other people, you know, that I took care of in the meantime before I retired. So, you know, there was still a lot for me to do, and you know, I'm pretty sure I'm not done, but yeah.
Because you're with me and we love you.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a good soul, Subs. He's a good soul. You know, I'm sorry as a woman, you know, that his kindness and his generosity wasn't appreciated at all, and that's sad. You know, because it didn't have to be that way. Because the exact same relationship that we have, he could have had that before. But he was the only one who wanted it. And it can't be that way, because a relationship can't survive if there's just one person in it. And that was the problem. He was the only one in it. It should never have been that way. You know, but there's nothing we can do about it now. You know, it wasn't done then, that can never be redone.
So
Yeah.
we'll just enjoy our second opportunity at happiness.
Yeah. Mhm.
So,
Yeah, because, you know, life is short, Subs. Don't fuck it up by being stupid or selfish or thoughtless, because whatever you do is going to come back. And when you least expect it, it's going to be thrown right in front of you. What are you going to do? Because we're all tested. We're tested all the time. He passed his test. I hope to God I passed mine with my mom. I hope I did. You know, so, and that was a challenge, Subs. Let me tell you. Mothers are extremely difficult to deal with. Fathers are not. I mean, I have a girlfriend who went through a horrendous experience that told Richard about it. It was her mom who did that. You know, for no reason at all other than she could. You know, and never apologized. My mom never apologized. They put it, I mean, being a caregiver is a thankless job. Because they think you have to do it. You don't. You have a choice. But they fail to realize that if nobody wants to do it, you have to go to a home. They don't seem to realize that. Or they don't care. I mean, now, my girlfriend, you know, there's a lot of them. Just like, you know, my mom had 5 kids. You know, but I carried most of the burden. I'm not sorry I did it because that's what I'm supposed. That was my profession. I can't go out here and deal with everybody else's parents and grandparents and not take care of mine. I mean, how would that look? And I'm not saying how would that look to the family or anything like that. I mean, how would that look like to God or something like that? Well, you do that for a living. You couldn't do it for your own parent, and even for my psyche and my well-being, because I don't have guilt or remorse. I don't have any of that because I did the best I could for her. I did everything, you know. She didn't always appreciate it, and she let me know it. But nobody else volunteered to do anything. Nothing. It was me. I know she made my life a misery. But, you know, I was there when she needed me, so that's all that counted. I didn't leave. I wanted to, but I didn't leave. So I hope to God I passed that test, subs, because it was not easy. You know, and any of you who are caretakers, I know if you're not, you probably will be. You know, if you have a spouse or your parents are still alive, only advice I can give you is pass that test. Because whatever you do will probably, you know, foreshadow what's going to happen to you. You know, so I know you have spouses and parents and siblings. Just do the best you can. It's not going to be easy. I'm telling you that now. But it's not supposed to be. God doesn't judge you on things that are easy. He judges you on things that are damn near impossible. That's where the real test comes in. Because that tests your character. But God already knows what you're going to do before you do it. Don't prove him wrong. Because that's when fate steps in. And my grandmother used to say, if you are stupid enough to draw fate's attention, you're as good as dead. And a lot of people are that stupid. Don't be one of them, subs. Just do the right. Take care of your spouse. If your spouse is good to you, you be good to them the same way. And even if your parents are ornery or whatever, take what you can stand. You know, because in the end, it'll work out better for you. It's not going to be easy. I'm telling you that now. It's not. It's not going to be easy. You know, but do the best you can. And please, God, don't fail. Because you don't know what's going to happen down the road if you do. You know, even if you don't fail, even if you pass, you still don't know what's going to happen down the road. But it'll be your road will be a lot smoother, and your path will be lighter, and so will your conscience. Don't do anything you're going to look back on with regret. Because even if they pass, which they're going to do, no matter how well you take care of them, they're going to pass. That's life. That's just how it goes. But you won't have regret or guilt. That's something terrible. That'll follow you for the rest of your life. You know, so just do your best. If they don't appreciate it, so what? You did your best. That's all you have to worry about.
And that will wrap up our Halloween saga of stories.
Yeah, Mitchell got his head smashed.
Oh my.
Yeah. Damn it!
Well.
Well, Tylenol ain't gonna fix that. That's gonna leave a mark, huh?
Yeah, sure will.
Yeah, that's gonna leave a mark.
Well, What's Spidey gonna do?
That's probably what he was saying.
Probably. This is
Yeah.
awesome. So, yeah, so that wraps up Kate's spooky stories.
Yeah, Halloween specials.
Halloween specials.
Yeah.
So, it is now Halloween, so maybe we'll do this next year.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Maybe. We'll
I
think.
gotta think of more stuff.
Yeah.
'Cause there's a lot of stuff happened over 25 years, Subs.
So, there's probably a lot more coming. It's just a matter of her sifting through her history and
Yeah.
telling you about it.
Isn't
So,
that history?
yeah. So, until the next thrilling video,
Yep.
hope you enjoyed the stories.
Bye, Sub. Next will be Christmas. I'll be getting ready for Christmas, Sub.
Yeah. Woo, fun times.
Bye, Subs.
Adios.
Yeah.